Shread, International Editor of the Cyber Express, and this podcast is coming to you from the Black Hat Security Conference in collaboration with Suraksha Catalyst. With me to discuss the CISO's first 100 days are Tim Sanouvong, President of Clients and Industries at Inspira Enterprise, and Nick Salian, CISO of bitFlyer USA. Welcome, gentlemen. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Tim, why don't we start with you? CISO has a lot to get up to speed on in a new role. What should be in their plan for the first 100 days?
Great question, Paul. Just as a quick introduction, Tim Sanouvong, I'm President of Inspira, and I've had the good fortune of being able to serve in cybersecurity for 25 years, and I've worked with many CISOs in my life. I've had two different CISO roles myself. I'd say that the first 100 days is a crucial moment for a leader in cybersecurity, and I like to define it as really three things that are most critical. One is to be able to assess and discover. Assessing and discover is really truly understanding who are the stakeholders that are important to the company, but also being able to evaluate the health posture of the company within quick time. The second thing I would say is being able to clearly define and communicate. That's defining your strategy, defining your leadership signature in terms of how you will deploy and manage security across the organization. Recognizing that up to a certain point in the first 100 days, things will start to evolve. Honeymoon period as a CISO starts to become more prominent. You don't get to make a claim about that's someone else's problem. It's now your problem. And then finally, as within 100 days, you have to start to begin to think about how do I execute and measure. Measure what are my priorities, measure what we need to do, why we need to do it, but also be able to create transparency in terms of what the CISO must do that are mostly tailored to the organization. Critically important in the first 100 days, all of which happens over kind of a concurrent state, but very important to be able to establish those priorities as well as being able to define it with your leadership stakeholder audiences.
So how do you feel about your first 100 days? Are you focused on more talking to the people? Because as I know that people is the most important part of the entire CISO role. You got to know the people where you're hired. So how are you managing that?
Well, it's something that happens from day one, but over time. You won't be able to fully understand all the stakeholders, all their motivations, and who will be part of the partners that will actually drive these outcomes around security. But it's something that, as a true leader, a business leader for security, is something you have to do not only upwards, but across the people that are looking to you as the person who's driving the strategy, but also the direction of the program.
Right. Excellent. And of course, technical is easy. So I'm sure you're a person who knows technology in and out. So what do you think at Inspira is the most important focus you have?
Yeah, I think technical, if you think about as a security discipline, security is something that cuts across everything. It's a business imperative, and it's not a singular sport, it's a team sport. And that means who you represent in terms of the organization, the teams that you serve, and as well as the technology partners and the partners that provide you kind of the ability to improve your program over time. And don't lose sight of the fact that your partnerships, your ability to drive and get advice from the community, that is equally as important in terms of what you bring and what your teams can do alone.
Right. Makes sense, yeah.
Cool. Nick, what can go wrong in those first 100 days, and what are the mistakes to avoid?
The first 100 days, I would say what would go wrong first, right? You walk in into kind of a fire hose situation, because most often you have CISOs either let go or you're actually the first CISO for the organization. But either or, what happens is when you walk in, you have stakeholders. And what I would say that, the first 100 days is so critical, and that's why I asked you a question about people, right? So people, you need to walk into doing introductions to those stakeholders, but that doesn't mean, they own they're obliged to actually go and really talk to you. So feel the people around the room, and then slowly and steadily build the building blocks like Lego blocks in terms of understanding the people. The reason I emphasize so much on people is because when you do, ultimately you're going to do board meetings, you're going to talk to them, you're going to sit and get their approvals, because as a CISO, you're, to be honest, like a lone wolf, right? You need to have their support. Your manager could be 1 or 3 people, right? Or 4 people, CEO, CFO, CIO, CTO, right? And all 4 of them don't really understand information security. And nowadays, CIO slash CISO, right? In an organization where you don't have a better experienced person to do security, you end up having the same tech guy doing infosec. But infosec is a discipline which really cannot be, I would say that put in between a sandwich and say that, oh, we can do everything. So I'm not a big supporter of that a CIO should also be a CISO unless they're a small organization, right? But in the first 100 days, I would say pay attention to that, and then eventually focus on the process. Process is also key, what exists in terms of workflows, and the tech part, which is tech is, of course, very important. Feel your vendors that are supporting you today and make sure that those vendors have their skin in the game, because if tomorrow everyone is going to face an incident, right? Of course, you cannot avoid it. So you got to have those vendors on your side when an issue occurs, right? So that would be my first 100 days. And of course, risk and compliance mappings to NIST, those are given nowadays. Like you have to give your scorecards. It's a given. But these are the most important factors before you even get to the pencil down the measurements.
So you talk about people. I'm curious, in your experience, when you have people that have different opinions or visions in terms of delivering security, how do you manage through those maybe adversarial experiences or relationship as a CISO?
It's part cultural. We live in a different time where AI is the walk of the town, right? You're perceived as an expert in some fashion because something happened in an organization before you came in. So that's why it's very important to feel what's the problem for which they have hired you. Are you a fixer? Are you supposed to build a strategy? Will they put you in the room to discuss the strategy? Will they give you the seat on the table? So you have to play your cards accordingly. And then, the adversarial side, you'll always have someone in your team who's pretty senior than you. So be careful, because they are actually your best buddies, right? Work with them. Don't try to go against them. It's never going to work for you. I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely, you did. Yeah. Thank you.
Interesting. Tim, do you have any examples of a CISO who has navigated those first 100 days well?
Yes. In my role in Inspira is I get to work with many organizations and CISOs, and it's something I am very fascinated by, because it's a very hard position to, one, establish your footing within an organization, especially as considering the complexity of the space. I do know a leader that would replace me in when I moved out of the role. It was a customer role. This individual was running a hospital from a CISO perspective. And what I was very impressed by, the person's been in the role for about 7 months now, is the transition that I thought he did remarkable. And part of it was, he said, Tim, one of my goals is to not try to change things quickly, but understand. I want to, recognize the fact that success as a leader is a byproduct of how I build up the team and and then position them for long-term success. The second thing that this leader did was that, build on the strength of what exists. And there was a phenomenal program, there was a phenomenal roadmap, excellent team, but he wanted to just make sure that it was highly transparent in terms of what needed to be communicated to the key stakeholders across the organization, which also meant that bad news doesn't age well. So you need to be forthcoming. You need to just make it as a part of the level of transparency that what it takes to truly secure a company. And it's a team sport, right? You're not going to be singularly successful as a leader of security unless you take that into account. And once you establish that, that leader did that, it becomes the cornerstone for continued future success. Because once you build that trust, after 4 to 6 months, what you see is that you're creating a bridge. And this bridge is something that allows you to have support and establish the partnerships to drive this year-over-year progress. And you don't need to solve everything out of the gate, because some people feel so compelled that I have to know everything, to your point, but you don't, because you have the support system to do that, but you have to build and work towards that and earn that. And so this leader, who's running a healthcare company from a CISO perspective, did that very well. And I think that's a really good blueprint for someone who's coming in. Take the time you need, leverage your community, because your community is another asset to be able to test your theories on what might work, because what works here may not work everywhere. And get advice and feedback as much as you possibly can.
I just want to add that when you look at the mirror, right, every day, you think that you're Tom Cruise, right? So you walk into this job and you think everyone thinks you're the most important person, but you're not, right? You're just a budget line item in that big business that they're running. So think that way, because the moment you start thinking, I'm the most important person, you get aggressive. So your point about try to be patient and be slow. So go step by step. No one is asking you to solve their problems in the first 100 days. That's why people are talking. And what happens, right? You go aggressive, and most of the CISOs don't survive beyond 3 years, let alone 11 months, right? So that's what is, that's the thing I would like to say, that, got to be steady, easy, and follow the guidance of your most senior member in the team, and then work with your reporting manager, whoever it is. Yeah.
That's a great answer. I've got one final question. What if you could give one piece of advice to a new CISO, what would it be?
You want to start?
I would say that look around you. Look around the people that you talk in your network. See what's their main focus for the next 6 months in your industry, whether financial, healthcare, manufacturing, and try to make more connections with all those vendors who are helping solve problems. And then pick your battles. And only then go inside and then start educating people, etc. Don't just go to your manager and say, I need $3 million. I'm going to put XYZ vendors on the list and problem solve. They need to start. So I would say the right word, get your tokens, right? Build upon your brownie points, step by step with the manager. And then they will guide you and help you to be in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And the CISO role it's a double-edged sword. It's a very, one may view it as a very glamorous and high-powered job. At the same time, it requires a relentless amount of execution and discipline and hard work. And so the two in tandem is what it takes to recognize that if everyone will start as a CISO one day, who becomes a CISO, you have to grow into the role. So at some point, someone becomes a CISO for the first time. And the only way you could become that is you build enough depth in the space. You understand the technologies, you understand how to manage people, you understand how to communicate to key stakeholders around the company, but then you understand the business. And to become a first-time CISO, you must be able to have fantastic mentors. You have to have access to people who've been there and done that, but also can guide you through your first 6 months. And that is invaluable for the success of a first-time CISO and a serial CISO, if you will. And I think it's just one of those things, the more you do it over years and multiple opportunities, the more you actually see you can learn from your past, right? And that's the opportunity space that you have. And every environment's going to be super different, but like I say, lean on that community of other security people. Lean on your team. To your point, you're going to have phenomenal people on your team, architects and people who know the company, the institutional challenges and barriers. Use that to your advantage to be able to drive the success that CISO needs, that the company ultimately needs, because you're a servant to the organization to be able to drive the type of effective program that is really what you're being called to do.
And also, like, just to add, like, you have the Suraksha Catalyst, network, right? So it's very important to also tap into that network, use the space. There's so many CISOs in the Suraksha Catalyst unit, so talk to them and nowadays it's everything about WhatsApp groups, right? I don't know, I like the day when WhatsApp is gone, I don't know what we'll do, but use that network. Try to go out and talk to them. It's not necessary you meet for dinners all the time. Like, grab coffee sometimes and talk. So
that's super important. I was just leaving a lunch just before this meeting, and there are CISOs that have CISO networks, and the reality is, at any point in time, at your fingertips, you can get advice, you can get ideas in terms of how to do something, how to tackle a problem, and it's always accessible. And if you really are serious about doing a great job in this role, you can't do it alone. It's really one of those community things, your partners, your technology, vendors, but being able to do it in a way that's open-minded and frankly, well-disciplined.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.